Hello everyone. So in the series of Kubernetes which we have started, we were discussing services in the last topic, and this is the last part of the services, that is headless service. We have already discussed about the cluster IP service, node port, load balancer, external name, and this one is the last, that is called headless service, right? So we have seen earlier how we were sending the request inside the cluster, how we were communicating to the cluster or pods, how we were balancing the loads with the real term example we have seen. Okay, how the pods, if the pods wanted to communicate to the external service, how we can do that. So those all things we have seen. In the last topic, what we will see here is, let's say if you wanted to communicate to any particular pod, right? How you will do, or your application or your client wanted to communicate to a particular pod, because earlier what was happening here, if you see cluster IP service, when we were sending the request, queue proxy was there. Okay, and it was sending the request to all the pods, any of the pods basically, right? So let's not waste time, we will discuss here. Okay, so how we will achieve, how we can send the request to individual pods. So that thing you can achieve using a service called headless service, right? Let's see, read the definition here. If any application, user, or a client, right, wanted to reach out or to connect to the pods directly, right, that you can do it using a service called headless service. Okay, and another thing is, it does not have a load balancer, right? It does not create any cluster IP service. Okay, when you create a headless service, right, it does not create any, it does not have any load balancing thing, it does not have any cluster IP service. Okay, it does not have a queue proxy as well. It is just a one-on-one communication. Whatever DNS name you will mention of the pod, 1, 2, or 3, it will send the request directly to that pod. Okay, so let's see that example quickly. Okay, this is the another diagram I have just shown here. So I will, what I'm trying to do is, before we go on the demo or discuss on that part, I'll clear it. So cubes. Okay, so I just pressed it enter, let it fail. Okay, so kubectl. Okay, and then apply -f slash, and I wanted to discuss on the headless. So this is the file I have created. Let it get deployed and things go in the ready state. And meanwhile, we will discuss here. Okay, so what I am doing currently is, so this is the file, right? So what I'm doing is, I have deployed 3 pods. Okay, and this is my service. Okay, this is API version is v1, and the kind is of service. Okay, and I have given the name of that service is India Headless Service, right? I have in the spec section, this is very important. Okay, under the spec section, cluster IP you have to mention equals to, you have to mention as cluster IP equals to none. Okay, this is as usual selector or label you can mention, and what port that headless service should listen, that you have to mention, and what is the target it is sending the request, that you have to mention, otherwise request will fail. That we have already seen in the previous video. Okay, so now hopefully it should be deployed here. Let's see, kubectl get all. Okay, so everything is running here. So these are the 3 pods got deployed, and this is the dnsutils. So this is one pod I have created. If I show you in the example, so this is the DNS pod present here. So what I'm doing is, I'm sending a request to DNS pod, this particular pod, and from this pod, we will send the request to headless service. Our headless service name is India Headless Service. We will send it the request to this one, and we will see how we will be able to route directly once we are inside this one. That we can directly, basically, we can directly send a request to any of the pods here. Okay, so like this. Okay, and behind the scene, basically what it is doing is, it is communicating to all of these 3 pods. Okay, it has all the information. Okay, so let's see in live now. I think pods are also ready. So what I will do is, first I will log in. So kubectl exec, right, and then interactive mode, and my pod name is dns utils, right? I can see here as well. So this is my pod name, there is no spelling mistake, right? And then hyphen with shell mode. Okay, so now I am in the interactive mode. Okay, I'm inside the shell. Let's try to send the request quickly on each pod here, and we will see, right? We will be able to see how we are able to communicate to each and every pod using once we are able to log into this particular uh, pod, that is dnsutils. Okay, so quickly before I go here, right, let me again show you. So this is what we were discussing, right? So let's see here, ns lookup. Let's do this ns lookup. And what is my service name? So my service name is this one. Okay, so what you see here is it has three IP addresses: 43 ending with 43, 44, and 45. So these are nothing but the pod IP addresses, and this is the complete DNS. Okay, default svc cluster dot local. Okay, and this is the name of my service. Okay, now what I will do is we will quickly send the request to any of the pods. Okay, but do we know the pod IP address? Yes, we have this pod IP address here also, or you can run kubectl pods get pods hyphen o wait. Okay, that will also give you the pod. Okay, now I will run one utility wget. Okay, so what this utility do is whenever you wanted to send any http or https request from the terminal, right? So then you can use wget utility. I mean, this utility, this command you can execute. So I'm going to send the request to any of the pod, right? So wget, and then hyphen, I'm mentioning q as a quiet mode, o as a output. I want the output, and I want the output of the terminal, not on any file and all. So I'm just mentioning it. Okay, and then I want the request to go to http colon double slash, let's see, any of the pod, right? And my application wanted to use a pod ending with 244. Okay, so I will mention the DNS, I will complete the port number as well. So basically, if you see what we are trying to do here is based on our request, based on our application thing. If my application 44 or my application wanted to communicate to port number 4244, which basically has all the logging information, right? All logging information I wanted to read, or I wanted to fetch, or I wanted to do any operation, so I can use it, and let's see it will serve the purpose or not. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is this command line utility, I'm sending the request, and you see we are able to run it, right? We are able to get some responses whenever I am doing this wget or http request whenever I'm sending, right? So this is how. So all the user information, let's say all the user information is saved into this pod, and you wanted to do something, you can send the request to this pod, you can send the request to this pod. So what it is happening here is it is completely one-to-one communication happening, right? So once I am inside this DNS utils pod, I am able to get or send the request or talk to the pod number one, pod number same I can do it for pod number two and pod number three. Okay, I don't need to communicate to any headless service to send the request. I can directly send the request to pod number 1, 2, and 3 based on the IP address or DNS name. The only thing is my application should be aware of the IP address, that usually whenever we will create the application or environment, or when we will create the complete architecture, we will note down and we will have that information. Okay, so this, I hope this is helpful and it is you have understood this example. If you have not understood anything, please post on the video, okay, in the comment section. I will take up your question and definitely I'll reply on those questions. Also, do not forget to like, share, and please do subscribe to this channel so that it will give more energy to me and my team to work on this, and we will definitely bring more and more knowledge, and we'll share all the information to everyone. Okay, so this is 10-minute video, should be helpful for all individuals to learn the headless service. Okay, thank you everyone, have a great day, take care, bye bye.